Okay, welcome to part 2. In this video, we're going to replace the sky, get rid of some of these dead trees. So the first thing we're going to do is we're on our sky level. Well, that's the grass level. Here's our sky. I'm sorry, we don't need to be on the sky. We need to be on the original image layer, okay, to pick the sky. So click down here. Let me just change the name here. We'll say original image. And to select the sky, we're going to use our quick selection tool. So I just hit the W. The reason why W, you might say, well, why is W quick selection? That makes no sense at all, because originally it was the magic wand tool. W wand. And so since it's that kind of automatic tool, they just group them together. So again, just press the W. If I press W again, I get the tragic wand. If I press it again, I get the quick selection tool. I call it the tragic wand kind of in a humorous way. Actually, it works really well sometimes. Let's try it here. I'm just going to click up here. Our tolerance is 35%, which means whatever luminosity the pixels are that I click on, it's going to go 35% one way and 35% the other way and group all of those pixels that it sees and call it a selection. So I'm going to click right here. And you can see that wherever I clicked here, it didn't select over here. So all I have to do is press the Shift key, click in this area, and now it's selected that. And let's zoom in here. And remember, we're getting rid of these trees anyways. We don't really care what it does with these trees. All I really care about is what it's doing to the edge of this building, the edge right here, and of course these trees. But we're going to do these trees a little bit different because this magic wand tool is, I can just tell you right now, I'm going to cut it. So let's zoom in here and let's check out the edge. And you can see what it did. It selected, when I selected this color out here, it looks for that anywhere in the image. So it's picking it up here, it's picking it up here. So this is not what we want. So I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. I'll zoom back out. And this time on the magic wand tool, I'm going to hit continuous. Now what that means is that when I click here, as it goes out from the point I click on looking for pixels, they all have to be connected in series. So that means this area right here on the building, that even though it's the same color as out here, it can't get to it because it's seeing this darker edge out here, so it never gets to that. So generally doing skies, you're going to want that continuous selected. So now if I click, you'll notice I'm going to click over here too, kind of get back where we were. And you'll notice now when I zoom in here, none of this is selected. Okay, it's only staying out here on the edge. And as I inspect the edge here, I'm just going around the edge, looking. This is going to be tough too, because you can see it's barely there. Depending on how detailed you want that, you're going to have to come back and do that by hand. Because you can see, I'm just going to hide the marching ants here by hitting Command H, and that just toggles hiding it and displaying it. Just Command H again. So you can see, I'm going to zoom in here quite a bit, that this is about a pixel. And if I go in here and select any of this stuff and then try to refine my edge, this is going to disappear. Again, it's one of those items that you have to decide, is there enough detail here to even show up in the image or not, or how much detail do I have to put here to make it look, to let people know that yes, this is indeed some type of ornate cross up here. So I'm going to bring back my marching ants, Command H. Let's zoom back out. I'm hitting Command minus to zoom back out. And I'm going to zoom back in. And I'm still looking at this edge. Everything looks good. This takes a little extra time, but it's always a good idea, which kind of defeats the purpose, right, of doing the automatic selection tools. If you have to go inspect it, you might as well draw it. But either way, I mean, doing selections is always a challenge, and it's good to have all these tools in your tool chest to go do them. I'm going to pretty much ignore this up here because that's going to have to be done a little bit different way. All right. So now that we've selected, for the most part, the sky, we really don't want these trees. So remember, we got to bring the selection down here across this wall. Now, because this wall is not a nice, good, sharp edge, there's yet another selection tool that we can choose. and that is the magnetic lasso tool. And what the magnetic lasso tool is looking for is you're supposed to be tracing along the edge that you want to select, and it's looking for some contrast, much like your quick selection tool is. And it's just going to start drawing a line. So since we already have the selection, I want to add to this selection. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and when I do, you'll notice that you'll see the little plus sign there next to it. You see that? So that means I'm holding down the plus sign. Once I click and start dragging, I don't have to hold the plus, or the Shift key, I'm sorry, anymore. So I'm just going to drag down this edge. When I get to there, I'm going to click again, drag. And when I say drag, I'm clicking or holding down the mouse button, or in my case, I'm holding the pen to the pad, and I'm just dragging along this edge. Now, it's not going to do a great job, and actually it's kind of hard to do. And then at some point, like with the pen tool, my hand's kind of getting crimped up, so I need to go up here and finish the selection. Okay, and it's done okay in here. We're going to go back and refine that. So again, I'm just going to keep doing that over and over. Hold down the Shift key, click, drag, let go of the Shift key, and just go along this edge. You see how it jumped up there? We're going to have to fix that. But it does a pretty good job. If you go nice and easy and drag it along this edge, you're going to see it does a pretty good job. Now, while I'm dragging, I can hold down the space bar, and it's going to turn it to a hand. I can just click and drag, let go of the space bar. It goes back to the tool automatically. And just keep dragging along this edge. Now, we're going to keep that tree anyways, but so I really don't need to be doing this part. But of course, it's doing a really good job here. If you want to get rid of some of these points that you drew, just hit your delete key, and each time you hit the delete key, it'll get rid of one of those anchor points, and then you can kind of start over. Go back down here, move this over, keep going down this wall. I know I'm missing some of it, but because of this wall is so rocky, I'm just going to jump across here, that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? So it's very forgiving, this selection that we're doing here. All right, down this wall. Okay. And then I'm just doing this for the heck of it. Now I'm just bringing it to the top here. I'm going to hit my Command minus key so I can see where I am. Let's make the image smaller. Drag back over here. Now, if you want to, I don't know where I started because some of this stuff is too small and hard to see. If you hold down the Command key or the Control key, you'll notice that plus sign turns to a circle. That's saying it will close the loop for you. So if you just click, it closed the loop for me. So now we have the top of that wall selected. Okay, and we need all this selected. So I'm just going to real quickly go over here to my lasso tool, hit the Shift key, just add this in, add that in. And I'm just clicking and dragging up here with the Shift key to add this stuff in. This tree, we can just go ahead and do that. I just added that to this and get rid of it because we're going to re-select it here in just a second. Now some of this, I don't really want this to go away. So I'm going to subtract this selection. So I hold down the Option key or the Alt key, and you notice that turns to a minus. That means I'm going to subtract the selection. So I want to subtract this part. So what I did is I drew around. Let's do that again so you understand what's going on here. I'll zoom in. And again, hold down the Alt key on the PC, Option key on the Mac, and I click, and I'm going along this edge and around the bottom of this. I'm just getting rid of that part that was sticking down there. So I subtracted that selection. So here we are back. We have this selection. Now we got to go over here, take care of this. And I'm going to use, again, my lasso tool. come down this edge. Whoops, let's redo that. I'm going to switch. I'm not going to use a lasso tool. I'm going to use this polygonal lasso tool, which allows us to draw straight lines, which will work in this case because we have all these angled roofs. And remember, we're trying to get rid of all this anyway. So again, hold down the Shift key, which is going to add to our selection. Click right here against the wall. Come down here to where we think this rooftop is. And we know it's angled. I'm just going to roughly go around this tree here in the background. Like that. And then again, remember what I said, you can just hit the Command key or the Control key and you'll see that little circle, which means it's going to close it for you, and I'll click and it closed it for us, thereby adding this whole section as part of our sky, which we want to get rid of that. And if you don't really understand what's going on here just yet, it will become clear in just a second. So we've made our sky selection. Now what we need to do, let's save this selection. So we've done all this hard work on it. We sure would hate to lose it, wouldn't we? So let's go over here to our channels palette, and down here you'll see this mask tool. Just click on it and it created this alpha channel, which is basically our selection. So we'll click here and we'll just rename it. I'm going to double click and just call it main selection. So now if I hit Command D, our selection is gone. I go back up here to RGB. We'll go back over here to our layers, and all business as usual. I can go in here and do whatever I want. If I ever want to come back to that, I can go to Channels, come down to this, hold down the Command key or the Control key on the PC, and you'll notice that selection little icon shows up there. If I click, look, there's our selection again, all safe and sound. So, but I'm going to hit Command D, and since we're in our channels, we're going to use this technique to separate the tree from the sky in great detail. Because you can see these kind of get a little wispy here. Now it's almost impossible to keep all of this and not get some of the sky, but we're going to get pretty close. So the idea behind this is we want as much contrast between the foreground and the background. So ultimately, the most contrast we could ever have is black and white. So just as an example, I'm just going to create a new document real quick. And we're going to fill half of this with black, half of this with white, or thereabouts. Okay? And this is the most contrast we could ever have. So we could easily select. So if I selected white, I click on that and it easily selects white. No problem. Same thing over here. Black, there's no question as to where this line is. As I make this closer and closer to the color white, this side, and I go right here, let's say use this gray, still it's going to be really, really defined, okay? But as this color becomes closer to this color, it becomes questionable as to where the selection tool is going to select. So what we're trying to do is make this side as black as we can and make this side as white as we can. And I say this side, I should say highlights, anything from 50% up, brighter, anything 50% below, darker. So I'm going to get rid of that. We don't need that. So what we have here, I know we're seeing color, but we're going to go over here to our channels, our individual channels. Remember, every image is made from red, green, and blue, at least RGB. So here's all the red in our image, here's all the green in our image, and here's all the blue in our image. Now what we're looking for as we go through these is we're looking for as much contrast between the image or the item that we want to select and the sky that we want to cut it from, or the color we want to cut it from. So as you can see, green, this is a little lighter, red, a little bit darker, but not blue, but clearly blue makes the greens in this tree darker as opposed to the background. So we're going to use the blue channel and we're going to duplicate that channel. So let's drag this down here, new layer icon, and you can see it's created this new layer. So now what we want to do, just like I showed you in the previous example, is we want to make the blacks blacker and the whites whiter. And if I go to my eyedropper tool and you look over there in the right-hand corner in the white area, you can see the RGB values are 237, 237, and 237, which is close to white, but not quite. 255 is absolute white. And our blacks here, if I just put my cursor over there, are 50, 50, 50, and 50. We need those to be as close to 0 as we can. So how can we make these, how can we increase the contrast between these two items? Well, we can use a levels. So all I'm going to do is hit Command L. And this is destructive, I know. We don't need a levels adjustment layer here because we don't care. We want this to be black as we can make it and as white as we can make it. So I'm just really interested in these palm trees. I don't really care about all these other trees because the palm trees are what we want to keep. So let's just keep an eye on the palm trees. I'm just zooming in and out here. And we'll come over here, and this is going to make our blacks blacker. If we click and drag this, this will make our palm trees blacker. Now, as we're doing that, let's look even closer in between these. Is because we want these black and the sky white. And we don't want to start turning the sky too black. So just enough to make that black. And as I make the sky whiter by dragging this end in, we don't want to get rid of too many. You see these are kind of gray. So we can make these go either way. We can make these go white or gray depending on how we drag these in. So this is really how we're controlling the detail of our selection. So you see as I bring that in how all those little, I don't know, what do you call them, needles, on the palm tree are disappearing. So we don't want that. So we want to go about right here. Let's go back to this side and drag this in, make this a little darker. We can even move this center point. So you just got to kind of finesse this whole process. Now, like I said, you'll probably never get to the point where this is all black and this is all white. And you really kind of don't want to. You kind of need this light transition going from the dark to the white, because if we went back and looked at our RGB, we would notice that even these go into the sky, they kind of fade off into the sky. You don't see this abrupt change. So you'll learn from just doing this from time to time what works and what doesn't. But I'm going to say at this point, let's go in a little bit tighter here. Something like that. So you can see these little pixels starting to show up here. We really don't want that. And there's one more thing we can do to get rid of, if we really like this, but we don't like this, I'm going to add a technique to this process here. You normally wouldn't have to do that, but to get rid of this, we can simply go over here to our dodge and burn tool, and we want to dodge. To dodge is to brighten, to burn is to make darker. The way I remember that is the burn tool is this little hand. To me, it looks like it's holding a cigarette, which burns. Okay, you can remember it any way you want. That's the way I do it. So the dodge tool, we're going to take a smaller brush, a little bit softer, an exposure of 50%. So what's that saying is, not midtones, highlights. These dots are highlights. So what this tool is going to do is it's going to look for things that are highlights from 50% on up and make them brighter. If I try to do this in the black, it says, oh, that's too dark. It doesn't do anything here, which is good. So that allows us to get real close to the edge. Now, if it starts, see what it's doing to that branch right there? So I'm gonna undo that a couple times and go back. Oops. Oh, man. Okay. We can just not make that 50%, but about, let's say 28. See how that works. Now you may have to go over it a couple times. This is working in one stroke up here because it's, I guess, obvious to the tool that it needs to go. But we can, now I'm just tapping. I'm not clicking and dragging. I'm just tapping. If you're using a mouse, you would just click the mouse here and there to get rid of that. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's see if we have it anywhere else. See all this in here, but all we care about, I don't care about these trees. All I care about is the surrounding here. And we have the same issue over here, so we can make this See, it's cutting into that tree. We're just going to have to see how this looks, what this is going to do. We may be able to get away with this because it's such a neutral gray, and it depends on how blue we make the sky, whether we see some kind of haloing and stuff. Now, our object at this point, if you don't really understand what's going on here, is to make the whites as white as we can and make the trees as black as we can. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. It's dodging. I don't really care about that edge, just this edge here. The rest of this we can just kind of do real quickly. Actually, we could just take a brush with full-on white because we don't really care about any of this up here until we get close to that tree. Let's go back to our dodge and burn tool, which is the O key. I know that makes no sense, but that's what it is. Because we do care about this tree up here. All right, so we've made this as white as we can around this tree. And all this preparation is going to pay off, I promise. So let's go back to our brush tool. We can get rid of all of this. Okay, this can all be white. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. All this, don't need any of that. We don't have to be real precise over here. Okay, remember these trees are gone anyways. All we're concentrating on are these little guys here. So that being the case, all we care about is the palm trees. Okay. Don't really need any of this. Actually, you know what? We probably could use the selection around those little crosses, but let's make all that white and that black. So now, this is all we're interested in, is and anything above the wall, below the wall, etc. But I put my cursor over our blue copy. So we have our selection tool. You notice when I place my cursor over it, you see the little selection icon here. And I'm just going to click, and it selects all the white. Well, that's not what I want selected. I want the black selected. So I simply hit Command-Shift-I to invert the selection. Now that we have our selection, I can go back to RGB, go back to my layers, and I'm going to copy these palm trees to a new layer. So they'll be there by themselves. So I'll copy that to a new layer. Okay, so the palm trees are all by themselves. And we can see, let's zoom in here, we can see it did a really nice job cutting that out. I mean, that's pretty good. Now, of course, the truth will be when we put the sky in. Everything looks good on transparency. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's cut the sky out. And remember, we already made our selection. Let's go back to our channels. And here's our initial selection. Oh, was it initial or main? I don't even remember where those came from. Let's do, I think it was our main selection. So there's our sky. Let's go back to our RGB, to our main channel. Remember, this is our palm trees. Okay. This is our sky. And I'm just going to hit, no, wait. Select that, and we're going to create a layer mask, which is giving us the opposite of what we want. So we simply hit Command-I to invert that. Now we've eliminated the sky, and we've got this great selection around our palm trees. And remember, the reason why I cut those to a new layer is because they are on their own layer. It was just easier to do that than add that to the selection, because we might want to make some adjustments here later. I don't know. Whenever I have an opportunity to cut something away, I just do it. Now you can see here, when I made that selection, I didn't do a great job down here. Something happened down here. I left these trees in, which I'm not going to go back. We can easily, since we have a mask, I can just take our brush tool and paint with, oh, that's up here. That's our palm trees. So I'm going to use the erase tool actually and get rid of that. So it really wasn't, when we selected the wall, remember when we did that? That's not the problem. The problem is the palm tree selection I did wasn't terribly great. I know that's not great in there. I know. So I'm just going to go along this wall real quick. Let's use our lasso tool and create a selection here so it looks a little more rugged. We'll go up this tree, connect it, delete. We'll do the same thing over here. And I'm hitting delete as opposed to creating a mask because I know I don't want this. So I don't really need a mask. Okay. So we've gotten rid of that. So now we are free to put in our sky. So let's go up here. I have a sky layer already for us right up here. This hue saturation, what was this all? Oh, that was the grass. Well, what was this? That was replacing the grass. This is grass color. All right, so now we're going to do the sky, and we will do that in the next video.